In this presentation, we will work multiple choice questions related to governmental accounting, going through those questions and then practicing test-taking skills with them. First question, which asset is a general capital asset? Either A, one bought from general fund revenues, B, one brought and maintained by an enterprise fund, C, one bought from revenues of an internal service fund, or D, none of the above. Let's go through this again, see if we can use the process of elimination. Which asset is a general capital asset? Either A, one bought from the general fund revenues. So either if we're talking about the general capital assets, we might think, maybe if it's bought from the general fund, that could be the case. One bought and maintained by the enterprise fund. So this looks much the same, but the only difference being one is on the enterprise fund and one through the general revenue fund. Of the two, I would think that the A would be more plausible. So of those two, I would think that it would be A over B. If we go to C, one bought from revenues of the internal service fund. Again, if we think about the internal service fund as compared to A, the general fund, for the general capital assets, I would think that A would be the better option than C. So I would think that I would stick with A over C. And then D says none of the above. So we're left with either one bought from the general fund revenues or D, none of the above. Of the two, final answer, A. Which asset is a general capital asset? A capital asset, one that will be bought from the general fund revenues. Next question. Donation to the city. Original cost was $300,000. Accumulated depreciation $250,000. Appraised value of the donation is going to be $600,000. Donation should be recorded in the governmental activities account at the government-wide level at either 50, 100, 0, or 600,000. There's a couple things we want to keep in mind when we see a problem like this. One is what are we talking about here? Are we talking about a fund accounting? Are we talking about a particular fund we're recording, or the government-wide level? So you want to basically keep those two things separate. You think this is going to be the government-wide accounting, where you could think of like kind of the entity as a whole, and then the fund accounting, which we're going to break those down into funds. So in this case, of course, we have the government-wide type of activity. So that's going to be more on an accrual basis. So when you see government-wide activity, you'd say, well, that's going to be more like an accrual type of basis. Then we would want to go in here and say, if there's a donation, how would we record that? Typically more on an accrual type basis. So there's going to be a donation that happened. Outside person donated something, and we need to put that on the books. Are we going to put it on the books at the original cost of $300,000 and the accumulated depreciation of $250,000? Or at the appraised value? Now, typically, we're going to think of the appraised value because that's going to be the fair market value. So we would go with D here. So because it's on the government-wide, it's going to go on the government-wide. We're going to put it on the books as a long-term asset because we have an accrual basis as opposed to a modified accrual basis. We're not going to put it on the books at what it was for the owner, the donor. We're going to typically put it on the books here at what we think the current value is, which is in this case is the appraised value of $600,000. Next question. Donation to the city. Original cost $300,000. Accumulated depreciation $250,000. Appraised value of the donation $600,000. Donation should be recorded in the general fund at 50, 300, 0, or 600. So now we're thinking about fund accounting. So no, same question. Question now being how you want to think of this is, are we thinking about the government accounting as a whole, government-wide type of activity, or are we thinking about the fund type of accounting? And if we were thinking about the government as a whole, we would be on accrual accounting. And if we're thinking about a large asset like this looks like a capital asset, then it would be on the books. If we're thinking about fund accounting, governmental funds, such as the general fund, a governmental fund on a modified accrual basis doesn't have long-term capital type assets. Therefore, on the general fund, won't be recorded on the general fund. It'll be recorded. It won't be on the books. It'll be 0 on the general fund because the general fund is tracking under a modified accrual basis, not having long-term assets on it, therefore.